what ends up happening is that when these banks froze up in 2019, they wouldn't lend to each other because they're like, which one of you guys, like, we don't know who's lying here, basically. And then the Fed started freaking out, and they basically bailed out the banks, and they hit a huge amount of printing of money, and basically over collateralized the banks. So there's I think there's over $3 trillion like sitting at the Fed of like money that should be going out to loaning into the economy, building small businesses. But these guys are so fucking afraid of putting this money into the market and stuff like, because banks don't even do what banks are supposed to do. Banks are supposed to lend to small businesses. Banks are supposed to lend to businesses. That's why you have so many specialty banks. And on top of that, all the stuff that's happened recently, they're like the big banks are rugging the small banks, and the small banks are lends to the commercial real estate developer who rents to the farmers, who rents to the small business owners. These are the people.
They don't rent to Monsanto, man. That's why. This is what it is. It sucks.
I know, and yeah. But it's just a travesty, right? So look, I know why you need banks. You do need banks, and I've always supported credit unions and everything like that, right? You need credit. You need these. I mean, for most of us we should have a major bank account, but then also have that account, right? But recently, what happened with Silvergate, and what happened with what's called Silicon Valley Bank, and what happened with First Republic, and what happened with all these banks. This is really what really started this off was basically Silicon Valley doing all this bullshit from basically COVID. They got all these loans. There was tons of money mulling around. So the VCs gave these companies a lot of money. Most of these companies make no profit at all, and they failed. And so what happened as the market started crashing, the market started crashing and stuff, and then people stopped reading up, right? So these guys are basically taking all their drug money, putting it back into the market. Then they get more drug money, and they're putting it right back. But what happens this time? The drug money didn't come back, and they're like, "Oh shit!" So they started going to their savings account and pulling out money and stuff because they weren't getting they got the round A, they got the round B, the round C, but there's no D&E anymore. And they're like, we need D&E to stay afloat. Shoot, because our investors as well as our board of directors have been telling us to fucking spend all our money on growth instead of profit. Because the amount of users matters more than the fucking dollars in the banks coming in. Yep. Stupid.
I wish we had that stupid butt right now. Stupid.
I mean, you hear me saying this, and then Michael Saylor doesn't sound that crazy anymore. You know?
Yeah. But he never sounded that crazy. It doesn't sound 100% crazy, but at the same time, takes one to know one a little bbit. But yeah.
Right. I'm over here crying on your stream about like, man, I should have sold that $15,000 car. I would have had another $8 million and stuff. Most expensive Bugattis in my driveway. But yeah, so all this stuff is happening. So this overnight. So basically, again, that means if he just mentioned overnight repo market, right? So this is so interesting. This stream was right before we started having problems with what's it called with Silicon Valley Bank.
Oh yeah. So
next time if we ever hear Jerome Powell say overnight repo market, holy, something's about to happen. That's interesting. Like, boom, boom. And it got so bad in 2019, they forced the big four, the big five banks to grab money first, because they're like, all right, we've printed trillions of dollars. Go ahead, grab. Nobody would grab, because if you grabbed first, especially if you're a small bank, oh, this is the one that was down bad. Let's short it. Let's hurt the stock and stuff. So these banks were super incentivized not to grab that money. So then afterwards, Jerome Powell ended up having a talk with the CEOs of all these banks and told them to grab money. So Jamie Dimon, he ended up grabbing a bunch of money and stuff. So did every other bank. At the time, JP Morgan was the best collateralized. I think it still is. And so they forced him to grab money. And then all these other banks started grabbing money as well. And then from there, it kind of calmed down for a little bit. But then what happens is the overnight repo market wasn't enough to kind of re-solidify the banks. So what they did after that is they pushed out the narrative, because look, the last crash was even though it was a housing crash, but the banks should have gone under. They bailed out the banks. It was a housing crisis, but they bailed out the banks because the banks are the ones loaning the money for the houses, right? So it was a financial recession, right? They couldn't afford to cause another recession because of banks again.
Yep.
So instead of having, you can sort of blame the house, but this time the house and the bank went down. This time it's just the bank went down. shit, this time around, even these dumbass plebs are going to end up doing something to us and regulating us bad this time. Fuck. What can we do? Oh, I know what to do. This is a medical emergency. This is a pandemic.
Oh, you should care more about that than the economy. Meanwhile, right, 2 years later, the economy is so bad, inflation's so bad. Why? And so it's ridiculous. But think about the timing of that repo market in 2019 as well versus the inverted yield curve. I was trying to look up the dates on when the inverted yield curve went inverted a little bit here, but in 2019, that happened in the middle of the summer, right? And Warren Buffett, what did he do? Started selling a shit ton of banking stocks. And dollar cost averaging out, right? The responsible way. But then in October, right, the New York Times said the repo market is not quantitative easing. The droids that you are seeing are not real, or whatever the fuck that line is, right? And then when did the pandemic crash happen, right? Versus all that timing, right? So repo market, right, back in October of that time to what, March or February? How many months is that? 5-6 months, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, once you hear those things, tick tock. Yeah. And that was only a 2-month recession.
It was only a 2-month recession, but it was enough to scare them a lot to enact all this stuff. And then the thing
they don't want that again. They're going to print their way out of that before it happens.
Dude almost owns it. Yeah. So basically from there, right? They shut down the country. They start really playing into this fucking narrative right here, right? And they really start playing into this narrative and stuff. And from there, a lot of fuckery was going on because, I mean, look, I like Trump and stuff like that, but I'm not trying to make this political at all or anything like that. But basically, Trump wasn't really believing it. And I think this is another big reason why they got him. They fudded it out and stuff. So the Democrats kind of laid in bed with whoever the powers that be to make sure the money was getting printed for this thing, because he wasn't really believing it. He wasn't trying to take shots. And then later on, he kind of kowtowed way later on after he wasn't president anymore and stuff like that later on and stuff like that. So kind of crazy what's going on there. So from there, they use the thing. They shut down the country. They give stimulus checks to everybody. We got to make it real. But think about it. You really think that all this inflation was caused by $3 extra fucking $1,000 by everybody?
Is now coming out?
In less than 2 years from now. Yep.
Well, they're test piloting it in July.
Right. Well, you're right. They're test piloting it and stuff, but the full rollouts happen in the next 2 years for most countries and
That's
stuff.
What they say, right?
That's what they say.
So it's one of these things where it's like they might have some emergency measures that come into place at some point, right? The end of this year can be a wild ride, bro.
Things can get pretty crazy, but on top of that, right, you have that they're preemptively testing this out. So it kind of lines up that after, whether it's at the end of 24 or is in 25, something bad's going to happen. Obviously, I don't think the banking, because I don't think basically we're going to collapse the banks and we're going to go into a recession until after the presidential election.
They'll keep printing their way out of a recession, and then once they don't have to anymore, if they stop, trying to hold it up, right?
Yeah, because basically they can't have a recession happen when a president or the Congress are being elected, because then they can enact a bunch of bills on them. Because this happens all the time. Anytime there's a big crash, magically there's this huge stack of paper that you have to read through it, and you have 5 minutes to do it, or you have to sign it. This happens a lot. Magically, you can't read what's in it and stuff. Just trust me and trust you, man. You're gonna save the economy. Just sign here, okay? And if you don't sign, this man didn't sign the paper that saved the economy. Fucking vote him out of office. Hashtag / loser. Hashtag betraying his party. Hashtag I don't know. Right? And that's exactly. And I think literally a lot of these things and stuff. I think Rand Paul. I think he was one of the only people that didn't sign the Patriot Act, if I remember correctly. Almost everybody signed it and stuff. There's tons of these little things that ends up happening when crisis happens. That the men in blue suits and black suits come out, hand a stack to the congressman, and then you got 5 minutes, bro, because it's happening right now. We gotta move. Fuck.
Yep.
Yep. And that's what ends up happening, and that's at the government level and stuff, right?